Good morning. Now I have to tell you something before we get started, okay? When I tell a children's story, I tell it for children of all ages. Are you listening? Okay. So I'm hoping that your parents and grandparents are listening too. But this story is for you. And my first question is, I want to know, do you feel important? Are you an important person? Yeah? Well, you are to God, and you are to your family, but do you think you're very important in the whole wide world? How about you? Are you very important to the whole wide world? I'm going to tell you about something that happened a while ago in a place called Borneo. It's a long way away. It's way on the other side of the world. Borneo had a big problem that people there were catching a disease called malaria. Have you heard of that? It's a bad disease. And it comes from, well, you get bitten by a mosquito, and some mosquitoes over there in Borneo carry the malaria germs. And when they bite you, they'd put that malaria germ in your body, and you'd get sick. And it's a really bad disease. People would get fevers, and they'd shake and get too sick and weak to work, and it's bad. Anyway, people in Borneo thought, no problem, we'll kill all the mosquitoes. And so they started spraying every place with DDT, a deadly, deadly insecticide to kill mosquitoes. Good idea? What do you mean, no? That's a good idea. Let's kill the mosquitoes. And then we won't get mosquito bitten, and we won't get malaria, and we won't die. No, I'm telling this story. Okay. Anyway, they sprayed DDT, and it worked. And it killed all the mosquitoes, and people were not getting malaria anymore. Great, great job. But some other things happened. Some other bugs were getting sick and dying too, like cockroaches. Well, nobody likes cockroaches, right? Well, the cockroaches in Borneo, they weren't dying, but they were getting really sick, and so they couldn't run as fast. And there's a lizard there called a gecko, and the gecko, all the geckos were getting really fat because they were catching all these slow, lazy, sick cockroaches and eating them. But the cockroaches had DDT poison in them. And the geckos started getting sick. And they were fat, and they were sick, and they were slow. And the cats, which could catch the geckos, man, this is so cool. We can catch all these fat, slow, sick geckos. And the cats were eating the geckos, and the cats got sick from the DDT poison that was in the geckos from eating the cockroaches that had the DDT poison. Poor cats. And the cats were dying by the millions. Not good. You know what else cats eat besides geckos? Rats and mice, which were not eating anything that was taking the DDT. The rats and the mice, there were billions of them all over the country because all the cats were gone. Not a good idea. Bad, bad. Just one bad thing after another. So they imported some cats, and they dropped them in parachutes all over the country, and people took them out of their little cages and set them free, and the cats, which weren't sick, were catching the rats and mice, which weren't sick, and everything got back in balance. But another bad thing happened. Malaria came back because they quit spraying the poison. They didn't want all the rats and mice. How important are you? Here, you know, the environmentalists have it right. Everything is connected. The whole world is connected. And if you kill all the mosquitoes, then bad things might happen. So, you're more important than a mosquito in the world, right? Aren't you more important than a mosquito? Yeah. And you're connected to everything else. Every thought you think, everything you do matters. And it doesn't just matter to your family, and it doesn't just matter to God. It matters to the whole wide world.
The eyes of God are upon me. They see everything that I do. The arms of God are around me. They keep me safe and secure, and He knows where I am every hour of every day. He knows each thought I think. He knows each word that I might say. And although there were times I stepped out of His will, I've never been out of His care. This changing world alarms me, with war, with sin, and with strife. But my loving Father, He charms me with joy, with peace, and with life. And He knows where I am every hour of every day. He knows each thought I think. He knows each word that I might say. And although there were times I stepped out of His will, I've never been out of His care. I've never been out of His care.
Good morning again. I always feel like I'm coming home when I come to the Clanton Church. I was thinking just the other day about being in the Sabbath school room. Maybe some of you remember Dr. Rennings always had the Sabbath school class back here in this room. And I remember them talking one Sabbath about the time before there was I-65 in Alabama. Now, this was before I came to Alabama, but they were the locals, the ones that grew up in this area, were talking about how if you wanted to go to Birmingham, you had to go 31, right? And then some of the older ones said, well, I can remember when 31 was gravel. And some of the older ones said, well, I can remember when there was no gravel. And I thought, wow. Now, that seems like yesterday, but it was a while back. I miss those Sabbaths and the discussions we would have in Sabbath school. Carolyn and I are now pastoring the North Highlands Seventh Adventist Church. It's in Hueytown. Sometimes they call us Bessemer. They get our address mixed up. We get mail from Bessemer, Alabama, or Hueytown, but it's the same church. And we're just glad to be here with you and worship God with you. We're here to worship, aren't we? That's what Sabbath is about, to come together as a people and worship. I don't know how it is with you. It's hard for me to change. I don't like change, to be honest with you. I'm slow to change. Now, if something needs changing, then let's change it. But if it doesn't, I will stay there for a long, long time I keep my cars a long time, and I've kept Carolyn for 40 years. And we just had a wedding anniversary just a couple days ago. It was our 40th wedding anniversary. But I always tell people, Carolyn is my second wife, first and last. I don't like change. And maybe you're like that. I don't know. But you and I definitely live in a changing world, huh? Hope and change? Things are going to change. They are already changing. They've been changing, I guess, long before most of us were born. Do you like change? Some people said, well, we hate change and we love change at the same time. What we really want is for things to stay the same, but get better. Right? Yeah, that's kind of where I am too, I guess. 100 years ago, now no one here is 100 years old, are you? No. In some churches, I have a few hands. 100 years ago, just 100 years ago, what do you suppose was the average life expectancy? Not bad. He said 55. 100 years ago, 47. Yeah. 100 years ago, only 14% of homes in the United States had a bathtub. Only 8% of homes had a telephone. And a 3-minute call from, say, Denver, Colorado to New York would cost you $11. Yeah. Wow. There were only 8,000 cars on the road. Hey, now you're talking commute. Now I don't mind commuting, huh? 8,000 cars in the United States. They only had 144 miles of paved road. This is what I think got me started thinking about Dr. Renning's class and then talking about 31 having gravel road. And I thought, no, that's not possible, is it? And yes, it was possible. The speed limit, 10 miles an hour. Can you imagine getting a ticket for going, 15, and speeding? Huh? Yeah. Alabama, Mississippi, Iowa, and Tennessee had more people than the state of California. Yeah. And with 1.4 million people, California was the 21st most populous state in the Union. The tallest structure in the world was the Eiffel Tower. The average wage was 22 cents an hour. Ouch, huh? The average person made between $200 and $400 a year. Now, if you were a dentist, wow, you made $2,500 a year. But if you were a veterinarian, now veterinarians were very, very special. Why? Because people were still riding horses. If you were a veterinarian, you made $1,500 to $4,000 a year. Yeah. An engineer, maybe $5,000 a year. More than 95% of births took place at home. Yeah, those were the days, huh? 90% of all physicians had no college education. Instead, they attended what they called medical schools. And the government came out and put in the newspaper that they were substandard. Sugar was 4 cents a pound. Eggs were 14 cents a dozen. Most women wash their hair once a month. And when they did, they used borax or egg yolks. Can't wait for that, huh? That was a shampoo. The leading cause of death in the United States was pneumonia. After that, the flu, influenza. After that, tuberculosis. After that, diarrhea. After that, heart attack. After that, stroke. Cancer is not even on the top 5. Interesting, huh? Interesting. Change? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And more is coming. More is coming. The American flag had 45 stars. Arizona, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Hawaii and Alaska hadn't been added to the Union yet. Drive-by shootings were every week. Only I guess we'd have to say they were ride-by shootings because there were teenagers on horseback. And they would shoot anything, a building, a barn, a bank, a window, you, your carriage. It was a real problem. Nothing new under the sun, huh? Yeah. The population of Las Vegas, Nevada was 30 people. 30 people. Insulin, antibiotics hadn't been discovered yet. Scotch tape hadn't been discovered yet. Crossword puzzles hadn't been discovered yet. Iced tea hadn't been discovered yet. Huh? There was no Mother's Day, there was no Father's Day. 1 in 10 adults could read or write. Only 6% of Americans had graduated from high school. Marijuana, heroin, morphine were available over the counter at your local pharmacy. And according to one pharmacist, heroin clears the complexion, gives buoyancy to the mind, regulates the stomach and the bowels, and is a perfect guardian of health. Things have changed, huh? Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. And there was so much talk about it, they took the cocaine out and put something much safer, caffeine. Huh? Punch card data processing had recently been developed, an early version of the computer. And the government used it to take the 1900 census. 18% of homes in the United States had at least one full-time servant. There were about 230 reported murders in the United States each year. So change has come, and for my life, all my life, I've lived with change, and you probably have too. More information has been produced. Listen to this. More information has been produced in the last 30 years than the previous 5,000 years. Wow. More than half the scientists who ever lived are still alive today. 90% of all the things in the supermarket, Walmart, Piggly Wiggly, whatever, 90% of all the things that are there didn't exist 10 years ago. 50% of college graduates are going into jobs that didn't even exist when they were born. %90 of businesses in the United States today were started in the last 25 years. One fellow put it this way, see if you can relate. My great-grandfather rode a horse. He was afraid of the train. My grandfather rode the train. He was afraid of the car. My father rode the car. He was afraid of airplanes. I fly in airplanes. I'm afraid of horses. What goes around comes around. Sometimes new jobs, new children, loss of jobs, loss of children can bring a lot of stress to people. But change is coming in their life, and they have mixed feelings about this change. Some exciting. Sometimes change makes you excited. Hey, we're changing something. Wow, yes, I like it. And sometimes, I like the way it was before. Now that's kind of where I live. Some exciting things, some things make me angry when people try to change things. When I go into a church, and I told my church in North Islands, I said, look, I'm here, but I don't want to change anything. I know some that come in, they want to change this and change that, and it's like it's part of their duty to change everything. And I agree. If there's some things that need changing, yeah, let's change it. Come on, let's change it. But if it's not, let's don't change it just for the sake, of changing. See? Change can be troubling for some people. I'm one of them. We may not want to change, but there will be change. It seems to be part of life. There isn't a cell in your body right now that was there 7 years ago. We live in change. The only thing that stays the same is change and God. I'm the same today, yesterday, and how long? Forever. He's the only one. So what does God say about all this change? Well, we can talk about change for the rest of the day, but what does God have to say? What's his counsel to you and to me about where we've been and maybe more importantly, where we're going? Do you have your Bibles? Is there a Bible in the pews? If they don't have a Bible, are there Bibles up there? Find a Bible. Would you find the book of Joshua? Now, Joshua's that little book is right after Deuteronomy. And if you find Judges, that meant you went too far. Back up, and you'll find Joshua. It's a fascinating little book. I feel so sorry for people who want to be New Testament Christians. They miss so many of the stories that are in the Old Testament. And there's such good stories that God put there, I believe, for me. For me. I can't imagine only having the New Testament, as wonderful as it is. God said that these things testify of me. Jesus said that. He was talking about the Old Testament. Every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, that includes the Old Testament. And so I enjoy going back and digging and gleaning these stories out of the Old Testament that I believe that are really for me, maybe for you. Joshua, if you found Joshua, look at Joshua 1, chapter 1. Look what it says. Now, after the death of Moses, remember, we're talking about change now. Now, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses, your servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. Oh. See, God starts right off there in this book. Keep your finger there, because we're going to come back to Joshua. God starts right off with a very, very brief reminder that Moses is dead. Well, now, why would he focus on that? You see, this was a great blow, a great change. Moses had led them for 40 years. Can you imagine having one leader for 40 years? No, you can't. Not a human leader. And Moses was with them for that long, and now he's gone, and they're kind of in shock. And God's reminding them, Moses is dead. There's a change coming. These people knew one leader. They knew one personality. He started the journey, remember, way back. And he's the leader of the journey. Now he's gone. And this is a great, great change for these people. But it was time. It was time. It was a time to go forward now. To take up the call of God. And in the same way, I believe this story is talking to you and to me. It's time to take up this call and go forward. Armies always march forward, they never march backwards. You never see an army marching backwards. Why would they do that? They always march forward. Onward, Christian soldiers. See? Yeah. So it was time. Some people say, Larry, it's not like it used to be. Oh, they're so right. They are so right. But then I think to myself, what is? What is like it used to be? Larry, why am I having trouble with my children? Because we're not home yet. This isn't home. You have to keep reminding yourself, we're not home. Why am I out of work? Because we're not home. Why is my church falling apart? We're not home. Why does nothing seem to work right? Because we're not home. Well, things just aren't like they used to be. I know. And I miss it too. To live, to serve God, you and I have to know, we have to understand what it means to learn from the past and not live in the past. Learn from the past, but don't live in the past. My uncle used to always tell me, he said, Larry, don't live in the rearview mirror. And I remember I was young and I thought, what's he talking about? As I grew up, I understood what he was talking about. Don't live in the rearview mirror. Don't always be looking back. Sometimes it's good to look back. I love to preach from the Old Testament. But I see new truths for now in the Old Testament. Learn from the past. See? Someone said that when you have more memories than dreams, your life may be coming to an end. When you have more memories than dreams, life may be over or shortly over. So what does God say? Well, in the book of Isaiah, listen to what he says in the book of Isaiah. This is Isaiah 43, 18 and 19. He says, do not call to mind the former things or ponder things of the past. Behold, now that word behold means listen up. I'm going to tell you something important. Behold, listen up. I will do something new. Now, we talked about this in Sabbath school. We touched on it. I will do something new. See, God is a God who uses change to bring about good. You and I may use it and not necessarily bring about good. but God does, always. We can't be content, you and I, with what is. We must hunger. We must thirst for what could be. What could be if God leads? What could be if God directs? We must always be hungering for that. And what holds your attention will determine what you do. Today, tomorrow, and every day till Jesus comes. What holds your attention, I trust it's not television. I can't imagine what could be on there that would hold your attention for more than about 2 seconds. What holds your attention will determine what you do and where you go. If you want to be distressed, look at other people. If you want to be defeated, look back, live in the rearview mirror. If you want to be distracted, just kind of look around. But if you want to be a worker, if you want to be a servant of the Lord, then look ahead, look up. Remember HMS Richards would always end his program. Remember, friends, keep looking up. Yeah. Good advice. Good advice. Keep looking up. Now, hopefully you're still in Joshua. Let's go back to Joshua just for a moment. Only this time, let's look at chapter 1, verse 3. Every place, he says, that the sole of your foot shall tread upon. You know, they used to always measure out. Property was very, very precious, and they would measure out the property. Wow, I have that much property. And they'd measure the other way. This is mine. This is what God gave me. And so he says, I promise you what I promised Moses. Wherever you go, you will be on the land I have given you. No one will be able to stand their ground against you as long as you live. That's a long time. For I will be with you as I was with Moses. I will not fail you or abandon you. Wow. You've never had a promise like that. I will not abandon you. I will not fail you. Be strong, be courageous, for you will lead my people to possess all the land I swore to give their ancestors. Be strong and be very courageous. Obey all the laws Moses gave you. Do not turn away from them. And you will be successful in everything you do. Now, if you look it up, he wasn't talking about this kind of success. He was talking about spiritual success. Not success in making money. Meditate on it day and night so you may be sure to obey all that is written in it. Only then, don't miss that, only then will you succeed. Again, succeed in what? Spiritually, physically, in knowing God, so that you can serve God. See, those who travel and move know what it is to be uprooted. I can remember moving from California, where I grew up, to Alabama. It was distressing to me. I mean, not Alabama, just moving away from home, just moving away from everything that I held dear, from people that knew who I was. You know, I came to a land that knew not Joseph. Okay? And I can remember this is more troubling than anything else. It's just leaving home after 40 years. It'd be like if I told you, just think about it for a minute. If I told you, listen, tomorrow I want you to pack your bags, and I want you to move to Sacramento, California. And you say, Larry, that's not going to happen. All my friends are here, my family's here, my children are here, my grandchildren are here, my church is here. People that know me are here. That's how I felt. And that's how the people in the Bible felt. They were uprooted. Life was full of changes. Did God turn it into a blessing? Yes. And somehow I knew He would, but I was nervous about it. But I knew He would. Few things in this life are stable. Have you noticed that? And getting less stable each day that goes by. The Israelites were continually moving through the desert. And they were able to handle this change only because God's presence was in the tabernacle, the church. And that was with them all the way. This portable tabernacle, if you will, this portable church went with them. So Isaiah 40, brother read it this morning, the grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God stands how long? Forever. That's comforting if you're uprooted. Mark 13:31, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. More comfort. See, the world changes, but God doesn't. All right, one more in Joshua. What else can we learn in this book of Joshua? Joshua 1, we're still in chapter 1, verse 12. Then Joshua called together the tribes of Reuben and Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and he told them, remember what Moses, he always calls him the servant of the Lord, commanded you. The Lord your God is giving you rest and has given you this land. Your wives, children, and cattle may remain here on the east side of the Jordan River, but your warriors, fully armed, must lead the other tribes across the Jordan. We're moving again. To help them conquer their territory. Stay with them until the Lord gives rest to them as it has given rest to you, and until they too possess the land the Lord your God is giving them. See, they understood that they had to stand together to fulfill the call of God on their lives. This was very important. They had to be united. They had to be committed to stand with each other. I remember an evangelist told me one time, he would get me with this every time. I'd fall for it every time. He said, Larry, did you know that the Honda car is the only car mentioned in the Bible? I said, Elder, I didn't know that. He said, yeah. He said, the disciples were all in one accord. And then the next time I saw him a few years later, he'd get me again. Larry, did you know the Honda was the only? Then one time he changed it. And he said, what did he say? He said, oh, Larry. And I thought, here we go again. He said, did you know that the Triumph motorcycle is the only motorcycle mentioned in the Bible? I said, I didn't know that, Elder. He said, yeah, it says Paul triumphed over Rome. And he was always coming up with these things, and it'd get me every time. But the idea is that we're to stand together. We don't want to try to be the Lone Ranger and do things ourselves. It doesn't work very good. It's not very pretty. They had to stand with each other until all had settled into what God, don't miss that point, what God had for them. So, the people of Israel had a calling. And you have a calling. And it's like I mentioned in Sabbath school. All of you here are ministers. All of you. Oh, Larry, I'm not a minister. I haven't preached for a while. You're all ministers. You may not be ordained ministers. Have you ever prayed with someone? Have you ever had a Bible study with someone? Have you ever tried to lead someone that was going in the wrong direction in the right direction? Then you're a minister. Congratulations. And ministers need to be doing something, doing things, because there's a whole bunch of people out there that have questions. Where are we going? I don't know. We're getting on this train. Where are we going? I don't know, but we're on our way. They have questions. You have answers. Oh, you don't have to have all the answers. All you have to do is have answers that they need. And I believe you have a bunch of them. So we need to get to work, you and I. The Israelites, they had a calling from God, a calling that was so obvious, so plain, that they became the only nation to be dispersed for 2,000 years and then come back. Just as God had said, as a part of what was to come. And in the same way, all of our lives, you and I are on this journey. We're on a journey. From the time you were born. And our job is to glorify God. Well, I'm a plumber. Your job as a plumber is to glorify God. Well, I'm a housewife. Well, your job as a housewife is to glorify God. Well, I'm raising my grandchildren or my children. Your job is to glorify God in raising those children. That's why we're here. Doesn't matter what your occupation is. See, we were born to give glory to God. And we're waiting for this ultimate promised land. You remember what Ellen White said about waiting? She called it the tarrying time. And she said the tarrying time is most difficult for God's people. And was she right? Wow. It's the waiting. Lord, how long, how long? Waiting's hard. Waiting is very hard. But the day is coming, this ultimate promised land, it is coming. And yes, to live forever under the leadership of God. Can you imagine? In heaven. That's what was started in the Garden of Eden. That's what it was supposed to be, but things happened, you know, that it didn't turn out right. But God had a plan. And so what's the Bible? Eden lost, Eden regained. Eden lost, Eden regained. That's where you and I are. So God said to Joshua and to the people of Israel, and I think to you and to me, take hold of God and prepare for change. It's coming. See, you and I promised Jesus way back a long time ago. Maybe when you were baptized, I don't know. But you promised him that you would serve him, that you would follow him, that you would obey him. How long? Until the end. until the end. And today is just one more step in that journey.